thank you for joining me today,
Sure.
Cherie. Why don't you go ahead and start with who you are?
Yeah, my name's Cherie Vanata, and I am a senior escrow officer. I've been in the business about 30 years. I like to say I started when I was 10, but that's not true. I've seen all different kinds of transactions in that 10-year period of time, and just come to you today with the information I've gathered over my experiences.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to tap into some of that experience and knowledge. So, just get right into it. Could you give us kind of the down and dirty of what a title company's role is in a real estate transaction?
Sure. So we're comprised of two separate pieces. There's the title part and there's the escrow part. So the title section has to do with insurance. The title folks do research on the property. They look into government recorded documents. They check in with federal tax liens, state tax liens, divorces, any kind of judgments that may appear against a person or property. And then on the escrow side of things, our role is to be a neutral third party. We collect instructions from lenders, realtors, buyers, and sellers. And we also deal with all of the paperwork and all of the money. We also work to clear off any of those judgments or liens off of a title report in order to ensure a buyer a first lien position, or excuse me, a seller a clear title, and a lender a first lien position.
Sure, that makes sense. First lien position, you want to?
Yeah,
say
oh
what
sure.
that is?
So anytime you get a mortgage, it gets recorded on the property. You sign a deed of trust. And first lien position basically means you're in first position to foreclose. So if we were having, you're the seller, I'm the buyer, you have a deed of trust or a lien recorded against your property, I want that lien to be removed, as does my lender, because I'm going to be signing a deed of trust as part of my purchase transaction. So the escrow person gets a payoff from your existing mortgage company. We pay that off through closing, and that allows my lender to record their deed of trust, and then they are in first lien position. So anything that's underlying, meaning if you had a deed of trust or judgments or taxes, any of those things are paid through escrow in order to ensure that first lien position.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
And so it's different than a credit card or an auto loan, right? Where if you default on those, they will come after you and your money. And whereas with mortgage, they are going to be coming directly for the property
That's correct.
that they have attached themselves to
Exactly,
the property.
that's correct. So the language in the deed of trust states that if you don't pay, we can come and take your home. I usually in a signing appointment say, if you pay, you stay, if you don't, you won't. And it takes 25 pages or so for a lender's attorney to state that, but the gist of it is you're signing that you promise to repay the lender, and if you don't, you will be foreclosed and forfeit your home over to the bank.
All right. So my next question we kind of already hit, which was the difference between title and escrow. So you deal with the escrow side of it. How much of the title side of it are you involved in a transaction versus how much of it is outside?
So I will just say I used to be a title officer before I became an escrow officer. A title officer is more backroom function. They kind of sit and they research and sit at their computer, and I'm more of a people person, so I moved over to the escrow side. Escrow receives a title report completed from the title team. And then at that point, we look at what's recorded against the property in terms of liens, and we work directly with both the property owner and the title team to determine what we need to get as escrow officers to clear those exceptions. So the title teams are always available to us. So sometimes if a client has a question about a specific easement that may be showing up on a title report that we can't answer, we defer to the title team. We do work pretty independently though from the title group. Once the title report is completed, we would only reach out to them if there was a question that we weren't able to resolve ourselves. Does that answer that question?
Yeah,
okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
So what makes different title companies different?
Sure. So I think So I will just say that all the rates are filed with the state insurance commission. So we all file our title insurance policy rates, our escrow fees, any other extracurricular fees within the state insurance commission. And they're all pretty close because we all kind of compare notes. No one wants to be the one that's too high or too low. So they're all pretty close. I think the biggest difference in title companies is the people. So you have to have a great relationship with the team that you're working with. You have to feel confident that those folks have your back and will support you and your clients in the best way available or the best way you possibly can. So in terms of the differences, I think that it's smart to couple up with a team that best represents you to your clients. We're the last people they see. And you may have pounded the pavement for months looking for a house or getting it financed or whatnot. So I think the biggest difference, I guess, is the people, and then also just the environment. You know, you want to walk in and feel like it's a professional environment in which your client feels welcome, is made to feel welcome and comfortable in what can be one of the most stressful transactions of their life, especially for a first-time buyer. They tend to be nervous, and so in my role, we just try to make it super comfortable. Do you want coffee? Let's talk about the soccer game on Saturday with your kids, and just make it feel really easy and make them feel at home. But yet other escrow officers work differently, so maybe that's not their style. So I think it goes back to your relationship with your escrow officer and your clients, and who will best suit your client's needs.
Yeah, I can kind of attest to how much of a difference having a escrow officer with good communication, how much better that is for a transaction than one who isn't as communicative.
Yes.
There are lots of different areas for transactions to get, issues. And the more you have somebody who can communicate those and get over those speed bumps,
right,
the better.
Yeah, and it can feel like once you've signed the contract, if you're not in communication with the buyer or seller, there is a period of time where really, nothing's really going on significantly. There's stuff going on in the peripheral, but they feel like, okay, I just deposited my earnest money, or I signed the contract, and now what? Now what do we do? And so we try to beat them to the phone call or to the email saying, I don't know what's next, what do I do? By providing some touch points throughout the transaction, just so they feel like they know what's going on, they know what to expect, know what the action steps are that they need to be doing in order to sort of keep that, plugging along towards the closing date.
And even when there aren't any steps that they need to be taking, just knowing what's going on helps. I recently had a transaction where I found out that the escrow officer didn't contact the seller until 3 days before closing.
Oh,
it was
my
the
gosh.
first time they heard from
no.
them. So the seller was sitting there unsure of what was going on the escrow side of it, and then ran into a speed bump at the very end that could have very easily been resolved with just a simple introduction at some point before that.
That brings up a good point. We do always ask for the contact information for the seller and the buyer right when we open escrow. It's really important in all transactions, either with me or another title company, that we have the email address and the phone number, because sometimes we have sellers living out of state. They may not want to get mail at the property address. It may be a rental. Or there are also touch points throughout the transaction that kind of go out somewhat automatically when you hit a milestone. And so we want to make sure that they're getting all of that communication. You're great about providing that information, but I will say some realtors that we work with are slow to get that information to us, and there's steps and contacts that are missed potentially because we don't have the contact information we need in order to make those conversations happen and touch points happen. So that's really important from our perspective as well.
Sure, yeah,
We
Yeah.
want to have it resolved before 3 days before closing,
right,
because
right.
that's stressful for everyone, and that's never an ideal scenario when you're, again, working with a very stressful transaction, um, by all parties.
Yeah.
Everybody's a little stressed, so we
Yeah.
want to make it as smooth as possible.
absolutely.